I'm often reminded that Brahmins are at the top of this caste hierarchy. And I always say to them, okay, well, could you tell me the metric that you're using to measure top and bottom? And of course, there isn't one, because it's a complete nonsense. The only metric, and I mentioned this in my book, that I ever found which was consistently applicable was the level of threat to the colonizers and specifically to their religious missionaries. And the Brahmins were always the highest threat, as were the African witch doctors, as they were denigratingly called, as were the wise women of Europe who held the herbal traditions, the medicine traditions. Each and every one of these was the highest threat to missionary activity through theocracies which wanted to control power. And so they designated the highest threat as being the highest in the appropriate social structure.
That's a great parallel you just described, between the Brahmins and the African witch doctors being at the top because they're top of being the highest threat to the colonizers.
And it was a ready-made trope, wasn't it? You had these terrible women all across Europe who, remember, were responsible for original sin, which makes them all criminal at birth, a familiar sort of refrain. And what did you do? Designate them as witches. When you came across the same traditions of knowledge in the African areas, well, you called them witch doctors. You just transposed that same trope with all of its negative hatred. And that brand becomes a portable brand and applied it to the African knowledge traditions. And so, yes, the priests, the Bharatiya Brahmins and the educators, they were a logical next step in this march of madness.
And that's why they're being so vilified and attacked today.
Well, it's that famous statement, isn't it? When the slave whips themselves, then the master's work is done. And what we sadly have is a whole civilization. Bharat is still replete with people who are engaged in doing the master's bidding, even though they don't know that that's what they're doing. And so, like I said, once we have the space to deal with this, we will then turn to our own brethren and heal these wounds and embrace each other, support each other, and then look outwards and rebuild Bharat in the manner in which our ancestral arc and the direction in which our ancestral civilizational arc was taking us.
That's great. Such a positive way to end the discussion. Deepika ji, do you have any final closing thoughts before we
No, I agree with Pandit ji that let India run itself would be a great way to. Indians are capable of doing it. They've done it for thousands of years. And I just wanted to add that also destroying the Brahmin, because so much of knowledge was not written down. You cut off a Brahmin's head, you can cut off the entire knowledge of a civilization, which has happened a couple of times in India. So that is why the Brahmin heads are important. And the vilification of Brahmins has been such a trope of trying to conquer India, which has been a constant sort of idea for the rest of the world for a very long time.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content and to support our work, please visit citti.net.